Admiral Lee Tejo stood in the command center of Earth's orbital station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. For 43 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Council. They had followed every rule, paid every tax, and sent their best people to serve on distant worlds. Lee believed in peace between the species. He had spent his whole career making sure humans got along with their alien neighbors. Today, that belief would be tested. The communication screen flickered to life. Ambassador Veltar appeared, his crystal body reflecting the cold light of his ship's bridge. The Valdari had been part of the Council for over 10,000 years. They thought they knew everything about running a galaxy. Admiral Lee, Veltar's voice came through the translator, sounding like glass breaking. I bring a message from the Council. Lee straightened his uniform. We're listening, Ambassador. The Council has decided that human expansion must stop. You have grown too fast, taken too much space. Your technology advances too quickly. This makes other species uncomfortable. Dr. Park So-young, who had been standing quietly beside Lee, stepped forward. She had spent 15 years working with alien scientists, building bridges between species. Her face showed confusion. Ambassador, we've followed all expansion treaties. We've shared our discoveries with the Council. What have we done wrong? Veltar's crystal form seemed to pulse with cold light. You exist too successfully. The Council requires humanity to stop all expansion beyond your current 17 systems. You will also submit to technological oversight. Council monitors will review all your research. Lee felt something cold settle in his stomach. And if we refuse? You have 72 standard hours to accept. The decision is final. The screen went dark. Dr. Park looked at Lee with wide eyes. They can't be serious. We're not a threat to anyone. Lee was already reaching for his communication device. Get me President Choi, now. 3 hours later, President Choi Min-na sat in her office, surrounded by her top advisors. She had led Earth for 6 years, always choosing calm discussion over quick action. But the Council's demand felt different. Wrong. They're scared of us, said General Kim Do-hyun, the youngest person in the room. We've gone from 1 planet to 17 systems in less than 50 years. No other species has done that. Because we work together, President Choi replied. Because we adapt. That's not a crime. Dr. Park's voice came through the secure channel from the orbital station. Madam President, I'm getting reports from our people in Council space. Some alien species are avoiding human diplomats. There are rumors of secret meetings. President Choi closed her eyes. She had hoped this day would never come. How long do we have? 68 hours, Admiral Lee reported. But Madam President, I recommend we start moving our defense fleets into position. Just in case. Do it, she said quietly. But be careful. We don't want to give them an excuse. She was wrong. The Council didn't need an excuse. Captain Lim Woo-jin was enjoying dinner with his family on New Busan Colony when the alarm started screaming. His 5-year-old daughter looked up from her food with scared eyes. Daddy, what's that sound? Before he could answer, his emergency communicator buzzed. The message was simple. Council fleets in system. All military personnel report immediately. Lim kissed his wife and daughter goodbye, promising to be back soon. He would never see them again. The Council attack came 18 hours before the deadline. 3 human colonies were hit at the same time. New Busan, Neo Gwangju, and Daegu Station. The alien fleets didn't send warnings. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply began firing. Dr. Park was on New Busan, attending a science conference about new farming techniques. She was in the middle of presenting research on soil adaptation when the building shook. Through the windows she could see Council ships in the sky, their weapons already firing. She grabbed her personal communicator and sent a message to Earth. They're not taking prisoners. They're not accepting surrenders. Run. The communication towers were destroyed 30 seconds later. Captain Kim Do-hyun launched his fighter from the New Busan Defense Station, joining 12 other human pilots against a Council fleet of 60 ships. The odds were impossible, but they flew anyway. His fighter, Seoul's Thunder, was fast and well-armed, but it was still just one ship. He watched his friends die one by one. The Council weapons were more advanced, their shields stronger. But the human pilots kept fighting, buying time for civilian evacuations that would never come. Kim's radio crackled with desperate voices. They're targeting the civilian ships. The school transport is hit. Where are the evacuation ships? There were no evacuation ships. The Council had made sure of that. On Earth, the news arrived in pieces. First, lost contact with the 3 colonies. Then, emergency signals from human ships in those systems. Finally, long-range sensors showed the truth. The colonies were gone. Admiral Lee stood in the command center, his hands shaking as he read the reports. New Busan, 3 million people. Neo Gwangju, 1.8 million. Daegu Station, 500,000 miners and their families. All dead. President Choi arrived at the orbital station 2 hours later. Her face was pale, her eyes red. She had been crying, but now her tears were gone. "Show me everything," she said quietly. The reports were horrible. Council forces had targeted civilian areas first. Hospitals, schools, residential zones. When human ships tried to evacuate people, they were destroyed. When colonies tried to surrender, their surrender signals were ignored. "They planned this," Admiral Lee said, his voice hard. "This wasn't a military action. It was murder." Dr. Park's message played again on the main screen. Her desperate voice filled the command center. "They're not taking prisoners. They're not accepting surrenders. Run." President Choi watched the message 3 times. Then she turned to Admiral Lee. "Send a message to every human world, every human ship, every human citizen in the galaxy," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something new in it. Something cold. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them the Council has declared war on humanity. Tell them we will not run. We will not hide. And we will not forget." Admiral Lee nodded. "What are your orders, Madam President?" President Choi looked out at the stars where somewhere in the darkness, Council fleets were celebrating their easy victory over 3 human colonies. They wanted to see what humans do when cornered. She said quietly, "Let's show them." For the first time in 43 years of galactic membership, humanity stopped trying to be good neighbors. The breaking had begun. The news spread across human space like wildfire. Within 12 hours, every human colony, every human ship, every human citizen in the galaxy knew what had happened to New Busan, Neo Gwangju, and Daegu Station. For the first time in centuries, humanity spoke with one voice. The Mars Consortium had always kept to themselves, trading with Earth but never getting involved in galactic politics. Their leader, director Song Hye-rin, had built her reputation on staying neutral. But when the video messages from the destroyed colonies reached Mars, she called an emergency meeting. "They killed children," she said to the assembled board members. "They targeted schools and hospitals. These aren't soldiers we're fighting. These are monsters." The vote was unanimous. Mars would join the war. The mining guilds of the outer systems had their own meeting. These rough, independent people had never agreed on anything. They fought over mining rights, shipping routes, and territory. But engineer Yoon Jae-sung, who ran the largest guild, stood up in their meeting hall and said 5 simple words. "They tried to kill us all." The guilds voted to combine their fleets. Every mining ship, every transport vessel, every piece of equipment they owned would be turned into weapons. Even the peaceful research colonies joined the fight. Scientists who had spent their lives studying alien cultures and trying to build understanding between species now worked day and night to find ways to hurt their former friends. Commander Oh Sung-woo ran Earth's intelligence network. For 20 years, he had collected information on alien species, their technologies, their weaknesses. He had always used this knowledge to help human diplomats make friends across the galaxy. Now he had a different job. "I need everything," he told his agents spread across Council space. "Ship movements, weapon specifications, command codes, supply routes, everything." His best agent was a woman named Bae Hyun-soo, who had been working undercover on a Council trade station for 3 years. She was married to a Valdari merchant and had 2 half-alien children. The Council attack had put her family in danger. Her first message after the attacks was short. "They're planning more strikes. Earth is next. I'm sending everything I have." The information she provided changed everything. The Council hadn't just decided to limit human expansion. They had voted to eliminate humanity completely. The attacks on the 3 colonies were just the beginning. A massive fleet was already moving toward Earth's solar system. They called it the Final Protocol, Commander. Oh reported to President Choi. "Complete extermination of the human species to prevent future galactic instability." President Choi stared at the intelligence reports. Detailed invasion plans, fleet movements, weapon specifications. The Council had been planning this for months. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 days until the main fleet reaches Earth, but that's not the worst part. O pulled up another file. They've sent smaller fleets to every human colony. They plan to hit us everywhere at once. Admiral Lee looked at the star map showing Council fleet positions. Red markers surrounded every human world. We can't defend them all. We don't have enough ships. Then we don't defend, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Colonel Nam Hyejin entering the room. She commanded Earth's Special Forces, the soldiers who handled the most dangerous missions. She was small, quiet, and absolutely deadly. We can't win by playing defense, she continued. They have more ships, better weapons, and they've had thousands of years to prepare for war. But they have weaknesses we can exploit. What kind of weaknesses? President Choi asked. Colonel Nam activated a holographic display. They're old. They're comfortable. They've been the strongest force in the galaxy for so long that they've forgotten how to be careful. Their security is terrible by our standards. Their communication systems are easy to hack, and they don't understand human tactics. She pointed to several Council military bases on the display. These are their main shipyards. They're building the fleets they plan to use against us. What if those fleets never got built? Admiral Lee leaned forward. You want to attack their shipyards? I want to attack everything, Colonel Nam replied. Their shipyards, their supply depots, their communication centers, their command posts. I want to hit them so hard and so fast that they forget about invading human space, because they're too busy trying to protect their own. President Choi was quiet for a long moment. This wasn't the kind of war she had ever imagined fighting. But the Council had made their choice when they murdered 5 million human civilians. Do it, she said. Colonel Nam smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. The first human counterattack came 18 hours later. Colonel Nam led a strike force of 12 ships against the Council shipyard at Zarian Prime. The base was building 3 battle cruisers that would be used in the invasion of Earth. The human ships appeared without warning. They had used new stealth technology that made them invisible to Council sensors. The base's defense systems didn't even activate until the human ships were already inside the facility's shields. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, the shipyard was destroyed. The 3 cruisers were wreckage, and 2,000 Council military personnel were dead. Colonel Nam's ships disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The message they left behind was simple. You want a war? You have one. The Council's response was immediate and angry. Ambassador Veltar appeared on communication screens across human space, his crystal form glowing with rage. Humanity has committed an act of unprovoked aggression against a peaceful Council facility, he announced. This barbaric behavior proves that humans are too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. The final protocol is now fully authorized, President Choi replied with her own broadcast. The Council murdered 5 million human civilians, including children. They plan to exterminate our entire species. We will not go quietly into the night. Every Council world, every Council ship, every Council facility is now a target. You wanted to see what humans do when you try to kill us all? Now you'll learn. Across the galaxy, human agents activated. Bae Hyun-soo sabotaged the computers on her trade station, causing 3 Council ships to crash into each other when their navigation systems failed. Mining ships equipped with improvised weapons attacked Council patrol fleets. Human civilians on Council worlds began disappearing, taking valuable intelligence with them. Dr. Park So-young, who everyone thought had died on New Busan, appeared in a broadcast from a hidden location. She looked tired and angry, but very much alive. I've spent 15 years working with alien species, she said to the camera. I've learned their languages, their customs, their fears. I used to use this knowledge to build friendship. Now I'm going to use it to tear them apart. Her first psychological warfare broadcast went out 12 hours later. It was aimed at the hive clans, an insect species that served in the Council military. The message was simple. The Valdari considered the hive clans to be expendable soldiers, good only for dying in battles that didn't matter. The message included audio recordings of Valdari commanders laughing about hive clan casualties. Within days, 3 hive clan fleets had withdrawn from the planned attack on human space. Their commanders said they needed to re-evaluate their participation in Council military actions. Engineer Yoon Jae-sung worked around the clock in his secret laboratory, developing weapons that the Council had never imagined. His molecular disintegration bombs could destroy entire ships by breaking apart the atoms that held them together. His quantum jump gates allowed human ships to appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. The Council had expected to fight a short, easy war against a young, weak species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once, using weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that made no sense. For the first time in their long history, the Council members began to feel something they had forgotten: fear. Admiral Lee stood before the assembled fleet commanders, his face hard as steel. Behind him, a holographic star map showed the positions of Council forces throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated enemy fleets, bases, and supply lines. "We are no longer playing defense," he announced. "From this moment forward, we hunt them down. Every Council world, every Council ship, every Council outpost becomes a target. We will not wait for them to come to us. We will find them first." The human fleet had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Mining ships had been converted into carriers. Passenger vessels now carried weapons instead of tourists. Even civilian transports had been equipped with basic armaments. Captain Lim Woo-jin commanded one of the most important ships in the fleet, Incheon's Ghost. His stealth vessel could slip past, Council sensors undetected, gathering intelligence deep in enemy territory. He had volunteered for the most dangerous missions after losing his family on New Busan. His first target was a Council communication hub in the Sector 7 region. The facility coordinated fleet movements across 12 star systems. If it was destroyed, Council forces would be blind and unable to coordinate their attacks. Incheon's Ghost slipped through the outer sensor network like a shadow. Council technology was advanced, but it was also predictable. Human engineers had studied alien systems for decades, learning their weaknesses. The hub was defended by 6 patrol ships and a small battle station. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a facility would require a full battle fleet. Lim wasn't planning a normal attack. He waited until the patrol ships were at the furthest points of their route, then launched a single missile at the communication array. The missile was small, almost invisible, and carried Engineer Yoon's new molecular disintegration warhead. The array simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was empty space. The panic that followed was beautiful to watch. Council ships flew in circles, trying to establish communication with their command centers. They sent distress signals that no one could receive. Within hours, 3 different Council fleets had accidentally fired on each other because they couldn't coordinate their movements. Lim's ship disappeared back into space, already heading for its next target. Dr. Shin Bo-ra had been working on theoretical physics at Seoul University when the war began. Her research involved manipulating the fundamental forces that held matter together. It was purely academic work with no practical applications. The war changed that. Her first reality bomb was tested on an uninhabited Council mining facility. The device didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it changed the basic laws of physics in a small area of space. Gravity reversed direction. Electromagnetic fields collapsed. The molecular bonds holding the facility together simply stopped working. The mining station dissolved into its component atoms in less than 10 seconds. When the recording of the test reached Council space, panic spread through alien military commands. How do you fight an enemy that can change the rules of reality? Dr. Park So-young continued her psychological warfare campaign from her hidden base. She had survived the attack on New Busan by hiding in the research facility's underground bunkers. Now she used her knowledge of alien cultures as a weapon. Her broadcast to the Nethik Collective focused on their ancient fear of physical contamination. She spread rumors that human weapons carried biological agents that could corrupt their gaseous bodies. Within weeks, Nethek military units were refusing to engage human forces directly. Her messages to the Valdari played on their pride and their fear of appearing weak. She provided carefully edited recordings that made it seem like other Council species were questioning Valdari leadership and competence. The result was predictable. The Valdari began withdrawing their most experienced commanders from joint operations. Afraid that other species were trying to sabotage them, the Council's united front was cracking. Captain Kim Do-hyun had somehow survived the massacre at New Busan and made his way back to human space in a damaged fighter. Now he flew a new ship, Seoul's Thunder, equipped with the latest human technology. His mission was simple: hunt down and destroy Council patrol fleets that were threatening human civilian ships. He found his first target near the Omega Nebula, a Council squadron of 8 ships that had been attacking human medical transports. The squadron commander was a Valdari named Kethvar, who had boasted about killing human weaklings and cowards. Kim's ship appeared on their sensors without warning, having jumped through one of Engineer Yoon's quantum gates. The Council ships immediately moved to surround him. It was exactly what he wanted. Kim's fighter was small and fast, but it carried something the Council ships had never seen, a weapon that could target multiple ships simultaneously. As the enemy vessels closed in, he activated the multi-target system. 8 beams of concentrated energy lanced out from his ship, each one perfectly aimed at a critical system on an enemy vessel. The Council ships found their engines dead, their weapons offline, and their life support failing. Kim's radio crackled as he received surrender signals from all 8 ships. He ignored them, the molecular disintegration charges he had planted on each ship with his targeting beams activated simultaneously. 8 Council ships dissolved into empty space. Kim's message to the survivors in the escape pods was simple. Remember what happened here. Tell your friends that humans don't forget. Tell them that Kim Do-hyun sends his regards. The psychological effect of these attacks spread throughout Council space. Military commanders who had eagerly volunteered to fight against humanity began requesting transfers to safer assignments. Some simply deserted their posts. Council civilians who had been told that humans were a minor threat that would be quickly eliminated began demanding to know why the war was taking so long. Protests broke out on several Council worlds. The younger Council species began to question whether they should be involved in the conflict at all. The insectoid hive clans had already withdrawn most of their fleets. Now the crystalline shardfolk and the plant-based grove tenders were making similar announcements. Ambassador Veltar found himself dealing with a crisis he had never imagined. The Council's military forces were being destroyed piece by piece. Their communication networks were compromised. Their supply lines were under constant attack. Worst of all, the species that made up the Council were starting to blame each other for the disaster. An emergency council session was called on Valdari Prime. The ancient chamber that had once echoed with discussions of galactic peace now rang with arguments and accusations. The humans are just one species, shouted Representative Zekthul of the Nethek Collective. How are they destroying our fleets? Because you provided faulty intelligence, replied Elder Morden of the Hive clans. You said they were weak and divided. You said this would be easy. Veltar tried to restore order, but the unity that had held the Council together for thousands of years was breaking apart. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Lee received reports from across the galaxy. Human forces were winning battle after battle. Council fleets were retreating from multiple sectors. Enemy morale was collapsing, but the reports also showed the cost. Thousands of human ships had been lost. Entire colonies had been evacuated as the fighting spread. Captain Kim Do-hyun had been listed as missing after his last mission. We're winning, reported Colonel Nam, but we're paying for every victory. Admiral Lee nodded grimly. The Council started this war to eliminate humanity. Now they're learning what it cost to try. On the main display, new intelligence arrived from Captain Lim's reconnaissance missions. The Council was gathering their remaining forces for one massive assault. They were bringing everything they had left to one place, the Nexus system, where the Council had first been formed thousands of years ago. They want a final battle, Admiral Lee said quietly. President Choi appeared on the communication screen from Earth. Then we'll give them one. Send word to every human ship, every human weapon, every human soldier in the galaxy. We finished this where it started. The hunt was coming to an end. Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Busan's Revenge, watching as the largest human fleet in history assembled around her. The ship had been built from the wreckage of destroyed Council vessels, using alien technology turned against its creators. 3 months had passed since the war began. 3 months of hunting Council forces across the galaxy. Now intelligence reports showed that the remaining Council fleets were gathering at Valdari Prime, the capital world of their oldest enemy. Final count, Admiral, reported her communications officer. 2,400 human vessels, ranging from converted civilian ships to full battle cruisers. Every colony, every station, every outpost has contributed what they can. Kang nodded. It was an impressive force, but the Council still had advantages. Their ships were individually more powerful, their weapons more advanced, their shields stronger. This would not be an easy victory. Any word from Dr. Hong's team? She asked. The stellar cascade generator is ready for deployment, Admiral. Dr. Hong says it's been tested and verified. It will work. Kang felt a chill run down her spine. The weapon Dr. Hong Min-seok had developed was beyond anything humanity had ever created. It could trigger a supernova in any star system, turning the sun itself into a weapon. They had tested it once on an empty system far from any inhabited worlds. The results had been terrifying and beautiful. An entire star had died in minutes, releasing energy that could be seen from dozens of light years away. Signal the fleet, Kang ordered. We jumped to Valdari Prime in 1 hour. On Earth, President Choi Mi-na prepared for what might be humanity's final diplomatic message. Ambassador Bae Hyun-soo had managed to establish a secure communication channel to the Council's emergency session on Valdari Prime. The alien leaders appeared on her screen. Ambassador Veltar of the Valdari, still glowing with crystalline pride despite the disasters that had befallen his people. Supreme Commander Gextel of the Nithek Collective, his gaseous form flickering with what might have been fear, and representatives of a dozen other species that had once ruled the galaxy. The human fleet approaches our capital, Veltar said, his translated voice carrying barely controlled anger. You have won your victories through treachery and barbarism. But Valdari Prime is the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. Your ships will be destroyed before they reach orbit. President Choi's expression remained calm. Ambassador, 3 months ago you gave us an ultimatum. You demanded that humanity submit to council control or face extinction. You attacked our colonies without warning. You murdered 5 million civilians, including children. The council acted to preserve galactic stability. Gextal interrupted. Your species was growing too quickly, becoming too powerful. It was necessary to... You tried to commit genocide, Choi said quietly. Now you will face the consequences. I am offering you one chance to surrender. Turn over all military forces to human command. Submit to war crimes trials. Accept occupation of your worlds until reparations are paid. The council representatives looked at each other. Several began speaking at once, their translations overlapping into an angry buzz. Never, Veltar finally shouted. The Valdari have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not bow to a species of barbaric children. Then you will face the same fate you planned for us, President Choi replied. Ambassador Bae, please transmit the demonstration recording to the council. The screen changed to show the test of the stellar cascade generator. The council representatives watched in silence as a star died, its death throes visible across an entire sector of space. This weapon will be deployed against any system that refuses to surrender, President Choi continued. You chose extermination as your solution to the human problem. Now you can live with that choice. The communication ended. Fleet Admiral Kang's armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Valdari system and immediately came under attack. The defenses of Valdari Prime were indeed impressive. Orbital battle stations, automated weapon platforms, and the largest council fleet ever assembled. Enemy fleet count: 800 ships of various classes, reported her tactical officer, plus approximately 200 defense platforms. They outnumber us, Admiral. But they don't understand us, Kang replied. All ships execute Pattern 7. Show them what desperation can accomplish. Pattern 7 was not a traditional military formation. It was chaos made into strategy. Human ships scattered in all directions, attacking from impossible angles, using tactics that no military academy would teach. Converted mining ships rammed into council cruisers, their crews sacrificing themselves to take down much larger vessels. Civilian transports loaded with explosives flew suicide runs against orbital platforms. Small fighters, piloted by volunteers with nothing left to lose, slipped through defensive fire to plant Engineer Yoon's molecular bombs on critical targets. The council forces fought with skill and discipline, but discipline was useless against an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Captain Lim Woo-jin, in his stealth ship Incheon's Ghost, slipped past the outer defenses and headed for the planet's surface. His mission was specific: capture or kill the council's leadership before they could escape. He found them in the ancient council chamber, still debating what to do as human forces tore through their fleets above. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the room, his crystal form flickering with rage and fear. The humans fight like animals, he was saying to the assembled representatives. They have no honor, no concept of civilized warfare. They must be stopped before his words were cut off as Lim materialized in the chamber, his personal shield generator making him invisible to their sensors until he chose to appear. Veltar of the Valdari, Lim said quietly, I arrest you for crimes against humanity. The alien guards reached for their weapons, but Lim was faster. His stunner dropped them all in seconds. You killed my family, he continued, walking toward the terrified ambassador. My wife, my daughter. They were civilians. They never hurt anyone. The council will never surrender to barbarians, Veltar said, backing away. Then the council will join them in death. Above them, the battle raged. Human losses were heavy, but council losses were catastrophic. Admiral Kang's desperate tactics were working. The orbital defenses were falling. The enemy fleet was breaking apart, but the cost was terrible. The converted passenger ship New Soul's Hope, carrying 3,000 volunteers, had rammed itself into a council battle station, destroying both vessels. The mining ship Olsen's Pride had fought off 4 enemy cruisers before finally succumbing to overwhelming fire. Captain Kim Do-hyun, somehow alive despite being reported missing, appeared in the middle of the enemy formation, flying a damaged fighter held together with emergency patches. His weapons were gone, his shields were down, but he kept fighting. His final transmission was heard across the battlefield. This is for New Busan. This is for all of them. His ship, loaded with every explosive he could find, crashed into the Council's command vessel. The explosion took out the enemy flagship and 12 surrounding ships. Dr. Hong Min-seok watched the battle from his research vessel, his hand hovering over the activation switch for the stellar cascade generator. The weapon was targeted at Valdari Prime's sun. One signal from him would kill everyone in the system, human and alien alike. Admiral, he called to Kang's ship. The enemy fleet is broken, but they're not surrendering. Some ships are trying to escape to spread word of our new weapons. Should I activate the generator? Kang looked at the tactical display. The Council fleet was indeed broken, but hundreds of enemy ships were still fighting. They would rather die than surrender to the species they had tried to exterminate. She thought of the 5 million civilians murdered in the first attacks. She thought of Captain Kim's sacrifice, of all the humans who had died fighting this war they never wanted. Negative, she said finally. We're better than they are. Signal the fleet. Accept all surrenders, but continue attacking anyone who keeps fighting. The Battle of Valdari Prime lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the capital world of the ancient Valdari lay in ruins, its orbital defenses destroyed, its government captured or dead. But it was not humanity's final victory. It was their warning to the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Kang's message went out to every council world. Surrender now, or face the same fate as Valdari Prime. You have 24 hours to decide. Across the galaxy, younger council species began surrendering. The hive clans, the shard folk, the grove tenders, all sent messages of submission to the approaching human fleets. But the ancient species, the ones who had started this war, prepared for one final battle. They gathered their remaining forces at the Nexus, the system where the Galactic Council had first been formed. It would be there that the old order would make its last stand, and it would be there that humanity would decide what kind of galactic rulers they wanted to become. The Nexus system had been chosen as the birthplace of galactic civilization 10,000 years ago. Here, in the shadow of an ancient red giant star, the first council species had met to divide the galaxy among themselves. Now it would witness the end of their reign. Admiral Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, watching as the last great council fleet took position around the system's inner planets. These were not the desperate remnants of a broken alliance. These were the ancient species who had ruled the galaxy since before humanity had discovered fire. They had brought everything they had left. Final count, reported his tactical officer. 600 council ships, including their oldest dreadnoughts. These aren't like the ships we've been fighting. These vessels are thousands of years old, built when the council was at the height of their power. Lee nodded grimly. The ancient ships were larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand the radiation of dying stars. But they were also the last of their kind. How many ships do we have? 800 human vessels, sir. But most are converted civilian ships or captured alien technology. In a straight fight, we don't do straight fights, Lee replied. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for Pattern Omega. Pattern Omega was the most desperate tactic in humanity's arsenal. Every ship would attack simultaneously, regardless of their own safety. The goal was not to win, but to inflict maximum damage before being destroyed. It was the pattern they used when there was no choice but victory or death. President Choi, Mina's voice came over the fleet communication system from Earth. This is your president speaking. 4 months ago, the Galactic Council tried to exterminate our species. They killed our civilians, destroyed our colonies, and declared that humanity was too dangerous to exist. Her voice carried across 800 human ships, reaching crews who had volunteered to die for their species. Today, we show them what dangerous really means. To every human in this fleet, to every human in the galaxy, you are the finest our species has ever produced. Whatever happens here, you have already won. Humanity will survive. Humanity will remember. And the galaxy will never forget what happens when you try to destroy us. The Council's final message came from Elder Thekmoron of the ancient Valdari, speaking from the bridge of their oldest dreadnought. The massive ship had been built when the Council first decided to spread their civilization across the galaxy. Humans, his translated voice echoed across space. You have fought well, but this ends now. Surrender, and we will allow your species to continue as servants. Refuse, and we will finish what we started. Admiral Lee's response was simple. Come and try. The Battle of the Nexus began with the Council's ancient dreadnoughts firing their massive weapons across impossible distances. Beams of pure energy, powerful enough to destroy planets, lanced through space toward the human fleet. But the human ships were no longer where the targeting computers expected them to be. Engineer Yoon, Jae-sung's quantum jump technology had been perfected. During the months of warfare, human ships could now appear anywhere in the battlefield instantly, making them almost impossible to target. Small human fighters materialized inside the Council's defensive formations. Converted mining ships appeared next to massive dreadnoughts and began ramming attacks. Transport vessels loaded with molecular explosives jumped directly into the paths of enemy weapons. The ancient Council ships, designed for battles against fleets that followed traditional tactics, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Dr. Shinbora activated her reality bombs throughout the battlefield. Pockets of space began obeying different physical laws. Gravity reversed, causing Council ships to crash into each other. Electromagnetic fields collapsed, leaving enemy vessels blind and defenseless. The Valdari dreadnought Eternal Glory, pride of their ancient fleet, suddenly found itself in a zone where the speed of light had been reduced to a few meters per second. Its energy weapons became useless, their beams crawling through space too slowly to hit anything. Captain Lim Woo-jin, still flying his stealth ship Incheon's Ghost, slipped past the chaos of the main battle and headed for the Council command ship. His family had died at New Busan. His friends had died throughout the war. Now he had one final mission. He found Elder Thekmoron on the bridge of the ancient dreadnought, surrounded by the last of the old Council leadership. These aliens had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had decided the fate of countless species. They had ordered the extermination of humanity. It's over, Lim said quietly as he materialized on their bridge, his personal weapons trained on the alien leaders. Your fleets are broken. Your alliance is destroyed. Surrender now and live to face trial. Elder Thekmoron's crystal form pulsed with dying light. Never. The ancient species do not bow to children. Then you'll die like the murderers you are. The final battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Nexus system was filled with wreckage from both fleets. The ancient Council dreadnoughts had been destroyed or captured. The last of the old leadership was dead or in human custody. But the cost had been terrible. 300 human ships had been lost. Thousands of volunteers had given their lives. Captain Kim Do-hyun was confirmed dead, along with hundreds of other heroes whose names would be remembered forever. Admiral Lee stood in the ruins of the ancient Council chamber, built on a small planet in the Nexus system. The chamber where galactic law had been decided for 10,000 years was now under human control. Dr. Park So-young joined him, looking tired but victorious. She had survived the war that began with the attack on her research station. What now? She asked. We've won, but what do we do with victory? Lee looked at the star charts showing human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. They controlled the most important systems, the major trade routes. the centers of galactic civilization. For the first time in history, humanity was the dominant power in the galaxy. "We do better," he said finally. The Council tried to rule through fear and superior technology. They failed because they forgot that civilizations are built on cooperation, not domination. President Choi's image appeared on the communication screen. She was broadcasting from Earth to every inhabited world in the galaxy. "To all species, all peoples, all civilizations," she began. "The war is over. The Galactic Council that tried to exterminate humanity has been defeated. But we did not fight this war to become conquerors." Her words reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "We offer membership in a new alliance, the Terran Federation. Any species that accepts human leadership, contributes to common defense, and respects the rights of other peoples will be welcomed. We will not repeat the mistakes of the old council. We will not rule through fear." The response was immediate. Dozens of species, freed from council control, requested membership in the new federation. The younger races, who had never been comfortable with the old system, embraced the chance for real representation. Even some of the ancient species, humbled by their defeat, requested terms for surrender and eventual membership, but there were those who refused. The remaining Valdari, scattered across a dozen worlds, declared that they would never accept human authority. The surviving Nethek collective retreated to the galactic edge, promising to return with allies from beyond the known galaxy. "Let them go," Admiral Lee advised President Choi. "We've shown the galaxy what happens when someone tries to exterminate us. Anyone who wants to try again will have to face a united federation, not just humanity." 1 year later, Admiral Lee stood once again in the ruins of the old council chamber, now rebuilt as the headquarters of the Terran Federation. Representatives from 47 species sat in the assembly, working together to create laws that would govern the galaxy fairly. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still tensions between species. But for the first time in galactic history, every species had a voice. Every people had representation. Dr. Park So-young joined him at the observation window, looking out at the stars where human and alien ships patrolled together. "Do you think we'll make the same mistakes the Council did?" she asked. "Will we become tyrants too?" Lee considered the question. Power had a way of corrupting even the best intentions, but humanity had learned something from their war against the Council. "We'll try not to," he said. "And if we do start to become what we fought against, hopefully someone will be brave enough to stop us." The way we stopped them? If necessary. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships of the Terran Federation patrol the space that had once belonged to their enemies. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace enforced by the memory of what humanity could do when pushed too far. In the memorial garden outside the Federation headquarters, a simple stone bore the names of every human who had died in the war. At the top, larger than the rest, were the names of the 5 million civilians murdered in the first attacks. Below them was a single line. They wanted to see what happens when you break humanity. Now they know. The galaxy had learned that lesson well, and it would not forget.